In business, there is one rule. When a customer wants to give you money, you take it. You do not turn them away. But on January 19th, 2026, one of the largest retailers in America suspended that rule. They placed a wall between their product and half of their customers. And this is not a marketing strategy. It is a signal of a hidden fracture in the foundation of a market, a fracture between the world of paper and the world of what is real. What you are about to see is a breakdown in logistics, a story of numbers, vaults, and human psychology. This is what happens when demand meets a wall. Let's begin with the document itself. A letter from a CEO to his customers is a formal act. It is not a tweet, it is not a blog post, it is a permanent record. Ken Lewis, CEO of APMEX, wrote this. He states the new policy, a mandatory $500 minimum for all online orders. The reason given is to, and I quote, assist in our efforts to get back to our normal service levels. We must translate this from corporate language into plain English. A business raises minimums for one of two reasons. First, to increase profit from larger orders, or second, because their system cannot handle the volume of small orders. The letter makes the second reason clear. This is about survival, not profit. He reveals that small orders, transactions under $500, represent 50% of their total order volume. A rational company does not willingly turn away half of its business, unless that half of the business is now a threat to its ability to function. Think of a lifeboat. If too many people try to climb in, it sinks. The first action is to limit who can board. This minimum is that action. It is a form of rationing. The CEO is telling us the lifeboat is full. The systems, the order processing, the shipping, the customer service, are breaking under strain. They are choosing to serve the clients who can place large orders because those orders are easier to process. They provide more metal per box shipped, more revenue per customer service call. This is a triage decision. But within this operational note, the CEO buried two critical pieces of data. He gave us numbers that most companies guard closely. First, he said that on Saturday, January 17th, their volume was 4 times that of a normal Saturday. Saturdays are quiet, markets are closed. For volume to quadruple on a weekend is not shopping. It is not investing. It is panic. It is the digital equivalent of a crowd forming before the doors open. Second, and more importantly, he wrote, silver demand increases have far surpassed gold over the last 6 weeks, and that silver, as a percentage of their revenue, has hit a new all-time high. This distinction is everything. Gold is the asset of institutions, of central banks, of sovereign wealth. Silver is the asset of the individual. It is accessible. Its price point, even at high levels, feels within reach for a person trying to protect a paycheck. When silver demand outpaces gold by such a wide margin, it is not smart money moving first. It is the public. It is the collective action of millions of individuals making a similar decision at the same time. The official action, the $500 wall, is a direct response to this surge. It is an admission that the wave of public demand has exceeded the capacity of the largest distributor in the country to manage it. They are not controlling the market anymore. They are reacting to it. This event allows us to see a truth that is usually hidden. There are not one, but two separate silver markets. They operate side by side, but they follow different rules. On the left, we have the paper market. This is the world of futures contracts, ETFs, and options traded on the COMEX in New York. The price you see flashing on financial news channels, let's say it is $94, is born here. This market is vast, digital, and fast. It is driven by algorithms, hedge funds, and macroeconomic bets. A trader can buy or sell 1 million ounces of silver with a click. They never touch the metal. They never see it. They are trading promises, IOUs, and pieces of paper that represent silver. The price here responds to data, interest rates, the dollar index, employment reports. It is a market of ideas about value. On the right, we have the physical market. This is the world of the coin, the bar, the round. It is a world of weight, of mass, of logistics. Here, price is not just a number on a screen. It is the cost of mining, of refining, of shipping a heavy, dense metal from a vault to a door. It includes insurance, security, and labor. The price here is the ask on a dealer's website, $94 plus a premium. That premium is the friction of the real world. For years, these two markets moved in rough sync. The paper price set the tone, and the physical market priced its goods relative to it. But the APMEX letter is evidence that this link is now broken. In the paper market, high prices are supposed to destroy demand. Economics 101. As the price of something goes up, people buy less of it. But what is happening in the physical market? According to the CEO, demand is hitting records as the price hits records. This is the opposite of the textbook rule. It is called a Giffen good paradox, or more simply, a crisis good. People are not buying silver because it is $94. They are buying it because they fear it will be $200 tomorrow, or worse, that it will be unobtainable at any price. The paper algorithm sees a high price and says, sell. The person at home, reading headlines about tariffs and mint closures, sees a high price and says, buy now before I can't. The physical buyer is no longer listening to the paper market's signal. The result is a disconnect. The paper price says one thing. The actual availability and the real cost to get it in your hand says something completely different. The premium is the measure of that disconnect. When premiums explode, it means the physical market is screaming that the paper price is wrong. APMEX, by imposing a minimum, is acknowledging this disconnect. They are saying the cost and effort to service a small order, to process the payment, pack the coin, ship the box, no longer makes sense at the old paper-based pricing model. The friction of the physical world has become too great. They are, in effect, building a moat around their remaining inventory and only letting those who can pay a significant toll cross the bridge. Now we reach the core of the crisis. The demand shock is severe, but it is only half of the equation. The real rupture is on the supply side. The CEO's letter contains one sentence that is a smoking gun. He writes, "Our output will be impacted by approximately 50%. Let us absorb that. APMEX is not just a store. They own a mint. They control the factories that turn raw silver into the coins and bars they sell. They are stating that their own production capacity is being cut in half." Think about that logically. If you own a factory and customers are breaking down the doors, you do not cut production. You ramp it up. You run machines 24 hours a day. You pay overtime, unless the raw material to feed the machines is not arriving. This points to a shortage at the very beginning of the chain, the silver grain or shot. This is the refined, pure silver that mints melt down to create products. No grain, no coins. So where did the grain go? To understand, we must look at a different price. While the price in New York is $94, the price for physical silver delivered in Shanghai, China is $103, a $9 gap. For a global refiner with a pile of silver, this is not a complicated decision. Do you sell your grain to a mint in Oklahoma for $94, or do you ship it to China for $103? You choose the higher price. That is capitalism. This creates a powerful suction effect. Physical silver is being pulled from Western vaults to Eastern vaults to capture this arbitrage profit. The U.S. retail market is competing with the Chinese industrial and financial market for the same raw material. And right now, the East is winning. This explains the 50% production cut. APMEX's mint is waiting for deliveries that are being diverted elsewhere. The tap has been turned down. This leads to the second major policy change in the letter. The CEO states they will no longer pre-sell inventory 30-plus days out. This is a profound loss of confidence. Pre-selling is a standard way to lock in future sales and manage risk. By refusing to do it, APMEX is admitting they have no visibility. They cannot promise you a silver bar in 30 days because they do not know if they will have it or what it will cost them to get it. The future for them has become a blank space. So the supply picture is this. Demand from the public has spiked by multiples. Simultaneously, the supply of raw material to the largest domestic mint has been cut in half by global capital flows, and the primary distributor has lost the ability to make future commitments. The system has shifted from just-in-time inventory to just-in-case, and in this new mode, the small buyer is the first to be left out. It is tempting to see this as a story of villains and victims. That is not our purpose. Institutions, banks, refiners, dealers operate on a different set of incentives than individuals. They are not good or evil. They are engines of capital and logistics. Their motive is simple: survival and profit within the rules of the system as it exists. The refiner sells to the highest bidder. If Shanghai bids $9 more, the metal flows east. This is not malice toward the American buyer. It is fiduciary duty. It is the market working as designed. The bank that trades paper-silver futures on the COMEX is not trying to starve the physical market. It is making bets on interest rates and currency movements. The bank's world is one of digital ledger entries. The fact that its trades influence a price that is supposed to represent a physical commodity is a side effect, not the goal. APMEX itself is acting as a rational, if desperate, actor. Faced with a catastrophic operational overload, 4x demand, 50% less production ability, it must take steps to avoid total collapse. It must ensure it can serve its largest, most profitable clients, fulfill its existing obligations, and keep its business solvent. The $500 minimum is a brutal form of load shedding. It is the business equivalent of a city shutting off power to certain neighborhoods to prevent the entire grid from failing. Their motive is continuity. In pursuing that motive, they have made a conscious choice to prioritize one class of customer over another. It is a cold, calculated decision made in a boardroom, not a conspiracy. The tension we are witnessing is not a battle between people and institutions. It is a collision between two frameworks. The institutional framework is built on efficiency, global arbitrage, and paper claims. The individual's framework, awakened by crisis, is built on tangibility, security, and the desire to hold value outside of the banking system. The institutions are not blocking the individual out of spite. They are simply following their programming, which is now at odds with the programming of a panicked public. The rationing is the point where these two incompatible programs clash. APMEX itself is acting as a rational, if desperate, actor. Faced with a catastrophic operational overload, 4x demand, 50% less production ability, it must take steps to avoid total collapse. It must ensure it can serve its largest, most profitable clients, fulfill its existing obligations, and keep its business solvent. Now let us step into the shoes of the person this policy affects most. The person who saves $200 a month, the person who buys a single coin every payday, the small stacker. For them, silver is not a trade. It is a ritual, a quiet act of defiance against inflation, a tangible anchor in a digital financial world that feels increasingly unstable. The $500 minimum is not a minor inconvenience. It is a locked door. The psychology here is powerful. There is the immediate frustration, the feeling of being pushed out, deemed too small to matter, but beneath that lies a deeper, more primal signal. If the biggest store has to ration, things must be truly scarce. If they won't take my money, what does that say about the value of my money? This policy does not deter demand. It validates the very fear that is driving the demand in the first place. It screams, what you are looking for is in short supply, and it is for the big players now. This triggers a profound shift from a saving mindset to a securing mindset. The saver thinks, I will accumulate slowly over time. The securer thinks, I must acquire what I can while I still can. The minimum order creates a new, painful math. It forces the small buyer to save up for longer, watching the price potentially move away from them, or to stretch their finances to meet the new barrier. It injects urgency and stress into what was a disciplined, calm process. It also creates a sense of finality. The easy democratic access to the market, the ability to participate with small amounts, is being revoked. That door is closing. The window is shrinking. For the retail investor, this moment is a loss of innocence. It is the point where the abstract silver market they read about becomes a real, logistical bottleneck that personally affects them. Their psychology is now inextricably linked to the inventory counts of vaults they will never see and the shipping schedules of mints on the other side of the world. They are no longer just an investor, they are a participant in a strain test. And the system is groaning under the weight. We have seen the rationing. We have seen the disconnect between paper and physical. We have seen the supply chain fracture and the psychological shift. Where does this lead? Let us walk through scenarios, not as predictions, but as logical possibilities based on the current facts. Path A, the gap closes. The price in New York rises to meet the price in Shanghai. The arbitrage profit disappears. The suction pulling metal east stops. Refiners begin selling grain to domestic mints again. APMEX ramps production back up. The supply shock eases. The premium shrinks. Eventually, the panic buying subsides, and the minimum order policy is quietly lifted. The market finds a new, higher equilibrium. Path B, the fracture widens. The Shanghai price continues to rise, maintaining or increasing the gap. The drain continues. Western retail inventories dwindle further. Minimum orders rise from $500 to $1,000, then $5,000. Premiums become the primary price. The paper COMEX price becomes an irrelevant relic for those seeking physical metal. A true, lasting bifurcation occurs. A paper market for institutions and a separate, much more expensive physical market for those who can access it. Path C, the peer-to-peer market. As primary dealers like APMEX become inaccessible and local shops empty, a secondary decentralized market emerges. Individuals sell to individuals. Online forums, private groups, and cash transactions become the norm. In this market, spot price is meaningless. The price is what a willing buyer and a willing seller agree upon, based purely on immediate availability. The concept of junk silver, constitutional coinage, could see a dramatic revaluation as it is already minted, recognizable, and fractional. These are not prophecies. They are maps of terrain that already exists. The rationing order is a signpost on that map. It tells us that the flow of metal has become strained. It tells us that the systems built for a quieter time are now operating beyond their limits. It tells us that the collective action of individuals, when multiplied by millions, can reshape a market. The story is no longer about a price on a screen. It is about a minimum order on a website. It is about weight and vaults and the distance between a promise and a thing you can hold in your hand. The market is speaking in the language of logistics and limits. It is our task to listen,